Chiro nanamati nagashataika shirshnas Tatan mamarda karadanda daron gripatahai Kshina yusho barmata ubanam asyatoshrin Nasto vaman paramakashmalam apanagaha. My dear king, Kaliya had 101 prominent heads, and when one of them would not bow down, Lord Krishna, who inflicts punishment on cruel wrongdoers, would smash that stubborn head by striking it with his feet. Then, as Kaliya entered his death throes, he began wheeling his heads around and vomiting ghastly blood from his mouths and nostrils. The serpent thus experienced extreme pain and misery. Tasyak shibigaralam udvamata shirasu yad samu namati nishvasatoru shochai Nrityan padanu namayan damayam babuva pushpai prapujita eveha puman puranaha. Exuding poisonous waste from his eyes, Kaliya would occasionally dare to raise up one of his hoods, which would breathe heavily with anger. Then the Lord would dance on it and subdue it, forcing it to bow down with his foot. The demigods took each of these exhibitions as an opportunity to worship him, the primeval personality of Godhead, with showers of flowers. So now we'll chant this together. Tach chitra tandava virugna panasahasro Raktam mukai uruvaman nripabhagna gatraha Smritva charachara gurum purusham puranam Narayanam tamaranam manasa jagama Tachchitra tandava virugna panasahasro Raktam mukhar uruvaman ripabhagna gatraha Smritva charachara gurum purusham puranam Narayanam tamaranam manasa jagama Tachchitra tandava virugna panasahasro Raktam mukha uruvaman ripabhagna gatraha Smritva charachara gurum purusham puranam Narayanam tamaranam manasa jagama. Please chant. Chitra pandava virugna panasahasro Raktam mukha uruvaman ripabhagna gatraha Smritva charachara gurum purusham puranam Narayanam tamaranam manasa jagama Tachchitra tandava virugna panasahasro Raktam mukhar uruvaman ripavagna gatraha Smritva charachara guru purusham puranam Narayanam tamaranam manasa jagama. Tachchitra tandava virugna panasahasra. Raktam mukar uruvaman ripabagna gatraha. Smritva charachara gurum purusham puranam. Narayanam tamaranam manasa jagama. Tachchitra tandava virugna panasahasro. Raktam mukha uruvaman ripabagna gatraha. Smritva charachara gurum purusham puranam. Narayanam tamaranam manasa jagama. Anyone else? Tat, of him. Chitra, amazing. Pandava, by the powerful dancing. Virugna, broken. Pana, sahasraha, his 1,000 hoods. Raktam, blood. Mukahai, from his mouths. Uru, profusely. Vaman, vomiting. Nripa, O King Parikshit. Bhagna, Gatraha, his limbs crushed. Smritva, remembering. Chara, Achara, of all moving and non-moving beings. Gurum, the spiritual master. Purusham, the personality of Godhead. Puranam, ancient. Narayanam, Lord Narayana. Tam, to him. Aranam, for shelter. Manasa, with his mind. Jagama, he approached. Translation. My dear King Parikshit, Lord Krishna's wonderful, powerful dancing trampled and broke all of Kaliya's 1,000 hoods. Then the serpent, profusely vomiting blood from his mouth, finally recognized Sri Krishna to be the eternal personality of Godhead, the supreme master of all moving and non-moving beings, Sri Narayana. Thus, within his mind, Kaliya took shelter of the Lord. Purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In Volume 1, Chapter 16 of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada points out that whereas previously Kaliya was vomiting blood, now his poison was exhausted, and he points out that previously Kaliya was vomiting poison. Now his poison was exhausted, and he began to vomit blood. Thus he had been cleansed of the vile contamination within his heart that had manifested as serpent's venom. The word smritva, remembering, is very significant here. The wives of Kaliya were actually serious devotees of Lord Krishna, and according to the acharyas, they had often tried to convince their husband to surrender to him. Finally, finding himself in unbearable agony, Kaliya remembered his wife's advice and took shelter of the Lord. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Kaliya's arch rival had traditionally been Garuda, the carrier of Vishnu. But now, Kaliya realized that he was fighting an opponent who was thousands of times stronger than Garuda, and who therefore could be only the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, Kaliya took shelter of Lord Krishna. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodaya Gaurodiya Pushpavantra Kshitro Shamnao Tamonuda. There is one very, very beautiful book. It has a very happy title. It's called Things Fall Apart. It's by an African author, Chinua Achebe. And I had the pleasure of teaching that book to my students last summer. It's a story of colonialism and how the British come into Nigeria in this area and slowly introduce Christianity and basically completely destroy the indigenous culture of the people. And there's one man in the story who's not standing for any of this at all. And he's like, we're not going to sit around. Our forefathers were fighters, and we're not going to just let a foreign enemy come in here, take over our land, destroy our traditions, ruin the worship of our gods. And as you can tell by the title, things don't go so well for him. At one point, he has been exiled from his father's, from his home, and he has to return back to where his mother stays. And he has one uncle there, and he's complaining to his uncle. And I remember when I read this part, it just struck me so much. And his uncle says to him, he goes, you're complaining that life is hard. He goes, for everybody, life is hard. There is no one on this world who life is easy for. The other day I was talking to my friend Pandit Srivas Prabhu in Cincinnati. If you guys ever have an opportunity, please go visit Cincinnati. They have a nice new center there and a good amount of devotees. And Pandit Srivas Prabhu is my friend. He's a very nice devotee, very sincere and serious. And we were talking, and I said, you know how it is when we're young. We complain about our problems, and we think we're unique. We get older and we start to realize everyone has problems. Everyone is suffering. There's no person who's walking on this earth who has it easy. I don't care who you are or how rich you are. When I finished my degree in English, all the graduates of that class were invited. The college I went to is Oakland University. It was created by the Dodge, one of the Dodge brothers, the Dodge cars. And so he had one house on the property, Meadowbrook Hall. And his wife was a prolific reader, so we were going through there and seeing her entire book collection, and we were visiting the rooms. And then, as with most houses, you would see the room of like where somebody had lived, and then we were told the story and about how they had one child. I think the one child died young, and like this, you're going through, and same thing, suffering. Dukkalayam shashvatam. This is the world we live in. And we may be upset at thinking, well, I'm suffering, and people don't recognize that. What is the person next to you going through? How much are they suffering? An intelligent person, they don't become angry that they're suffering because they know, go ahead and get angry. What's that going to change the situation? What, are you going to rebel? You're going to yell at the sky? How are you going to change this? That's not going to do anything. It is what it is. You may try to make the best use of a bad bargain, but life is suffering. But an intelligent person says, what's the cause of this suffering? And how can it be stopped? If we don't do that, then we're not intelligent because we think we're somehow going to rebel and get angry, and that somehow that's going to change. Well, if I yell out enough, things will turn around for me. Especially in this culture we live in, we have this experience. I remember my spiritual master used to say, we live in a McDonald's culture. We want everything and we want it now. There's no waiting. And people aren't used to waiting anymore. And if you don't get what you want, you find the boss. What do you call those ladies, Vidura? The Karens? Let me talk to your manager. I didn't get my way, let me talk to your manager, right? But I'm going to get my way. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. This is kind of the philosophy. There's not an idea that I'm going to change something about myself. I'm going to complain, I'm going to yell, and something's going to change for me because, gosh darn it, the entire world revolves around me and my ego. That is not how the world works. I constantly have to remind high school students that this is not how the world works. But Mr. Dorina, don't Mr. Dorina me. You can yell, you can complain, but my job is to prepare you for when you enter a workforce. And you're not going to be able to get by with excuses like, well, I wasn't feeling good, so I couldn't come take the test that day, or I couldn't wake up. No, this is how life is. Kalia is in a position where he is like the rest of us. He is suffering. And he is brutally realizing how bad it's suffering. If any of us think we've had it hard, imagine be a Kalia. You ever vomited blood? You don't have to answer that in front of everybody. It's kind of rhetorical, but if you want to share, go ahead. Ruktam. Rukta means red. So it's red was pouring from his mouth. Obviously, by convention, you ask how we can understand certain words. Convention. Usually when red's coming out of your mouth, it's not meaning like jelly or something. It's blood. So this is his position. Like, he's vomited everything. There ain't nothing else. Now the blood's coming. I mean, this is suffering. And it says, every one of his 1,000 hoods were broken. Imagine every single one of your bones broken. I mean, just stop and think about this. Sometimes we hear this and it sounds so poetic, but we have to stop and really kind of put ourselves in the place of these people, because that's what we're meant to do when we're reading Bhagavatam. If we don't, how are we going to have empathy or personally relate to it? Then it just becomes fairy tales. Oh, that's a nice story. Jai, it's nectar. No, it's something that real people undergo. Kalia was a real person. Or real snake, and he underwent this. And each one of us are undergoing some type of suffering. Somebody, his mother is dying. She's on her deathbed with cancer. Somebody else has lost his job. Some Mataji, she got hurt in the kitchen really bad. She had to go to the hospital. Every person, they got some problem. Something is going on with them. And they're suffering. And they don't have peace for one simple reason. When they undergo that suffering, they don't see it as Krishna's mercy. Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suradam sarvabhutanam gyantvam shantam richati. Prabhupada would repeat this shloka often, the peace formula. If one wants peace, he gives examples of what type of mindset one has to have. One of those, Suradam Sarvabhutanam, that Krishna is the Surit, the friend of all living entities. So Hrit means heart, right? Surit means good heart. The idea there is that for each and every individual, Krishna has their best interest at heart. He has no ill will. Samoham Sarvbhuteshu, right? He's equal to everybody. But if we don't see that what he's giving us is actually mercy and for our benefit, we're going to become angry. We're going to think, oh, this is not fair, or darn him. Because it's not enough just to know there's a God. Because there's plenty of people who know there's a God. They're just angry that he's not doing what they want. And then sometimes they even turn against him and say there's no God. But then you think about it, if there's no God, why do they make such a complaint about this person that's supposed to not exist? Because they know very well he does exist. It's just he's not doing what they want. And in that point, they become angry. The mentality of a devotee is that when they think about it, they know there is a God, but that he is their best friend, that he has their best interest at heart. So whatever I am going through must be his mercy. I just may not be able to appreciate it at the present moment. Whether my car is broke, whether my father is sick, there is some lesson here. There's something that I am supposed to benefit from. And what is supposed to happen as a result of this seemingly traumatic experience is that I am supposed to become more filled with love and compassion. And in this way, I attain peace. Peace will overcome me because I'll realize Krishna has my best interest at heart, and this is for me to grow and for me to learn. How do we do that on a day-to-day basis? She saved your eyesight, huh? We remind each other, right? This is the beauty of having sadhu sangha. Even if you're suffering, if I have Harisham's email, I can write him. And sometimes even when a devotee writes us, we may think, why is he writing me this? He knows the answer. Because we need to be reminded by Krishna's devotees constantly. That's why we have each other. We're always much chitamagata prana bodhyantas parasparam katayantas chamam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. So if ever I write Josh and I say, man, I'm having it really hard. He goes, you're having it hard. You know what Kalia went through? And then he could remind me, do you know what Krishna was trying to teach Kalia? Maybe Krishna's trying to teach you this. Yeah. This is why we have each other. Kalia also, he had sadhu sangha, he had his wives, and they were reminding him. But because of his sheer obstinacy and ego, he would not listen because he thought he was the enjoyer. Here I am. I'm Kalia. I have 1,000 hoods. Each one is beautifully decorated with a nice ornament. I have all these wives. I've now driven out my enemy, Garuda. I can enjoy this whole beautiful Yamuna undisturbed. No one can touch me. Krishna actually took mercy upon him because in such a mentality, even though he's thinking he's enjoying, he is not enjoying. Because real enjoyment, unending enjoyment, comes from serving Krishna. So when Krishna is merciful, he takes a living entity who is seemingly suffering or enjoying, and he takes that away so that that will not be a stumbling block to true enjoyment. Just like when Srila Prabhupada was one day sitting with the devotees, and he said, you should get Richard Nixon's email and contact him. You guys should go see him. Do you know this story? This was after, so Nixon resigned, right? There's this whole Watergate scandal where he was the president, and he had known about it, but someone in his party had recorded Democrats that were holding a convention or at this hotel, the Watergate Hotel. And it was a scandal, and eventually he resigned in shame and all this. And so, like, at that point, he's, like, completely, like, just being vilified by the public. Lowest point you could probably get as a personality. And Prabhupada said, go find him. You guys should find him and go preach to him. He'll be ready to listen. This is a vision of Mahabhagavat. He's seeing, oh, this is not bad. This is Krishna's mercy. Go be merciful to this person. And when we see suffering, this is also, of course, our opportunity to preach to those who are out there suffering, but to each and every one of devotees. It is really sad when you go to a temple, especially I try to travel, and I go and I meet sad devotees. That should not be taking place. What that tells me is there's not a strong community where each person is caring for each other, as if that was their brother or sister. If we see a devotee suffering, why is somebody not reaching out to them? Now, it doesn't mean we pamper people. That's not what that means. oh, you don't like this? Well, let's just give you whatever you want, because that's not how the world works either. But there has to be such a care, such love, that when also we sit and we try to present a message, we don't come across as pretentious and condescending, but somebody who genuinely has affection for that person and is saying it to them in such a way that what they don't just hear the message, but they hear that tone. And that tone says, I love you and I want you to be okay. Kalia, he was lucky that in such a situation he could finally listen, finally take this up, and he could change his life. If we are especially suffering, and it was like Vidura, you were saying the other day, what was it? That anybody who had something worthy had undergone some suffering. Or we were talking about this about art, the difference between, what was it? In times of war, great things were produced. You remember this? It's the same way in times of great suffering, great knowledge comes. And if you look at it in the Bhagavatam, look at all the times we have beautiful prayers of devotees, Gajendra and others. It's a time that they're extremely suffering. And we cull this wisdom from them. And Kalia, he is really suffering. And when these opportunities come into our life, when there's some great suffering, we have one of two ways of taking this. We can take it that, well, I had my desire, Krishna is not fulfilling it, and so now I'm angry. Or we can stop and say, this is an opportunity being presented for me to smash my ego. Not my real ego, but my false ego. My false ego that I am the enjoyer and that life should revolve around me. But rather, Krishna has some other kind of plan. And at that point, we could turn to the devotees. Krishna puts us in a position that if we take shelter of the devotees, we realize the sweetness of sadhu sangha and also how dependent we are upon each and every one of them to help us in our lives. When we get to that point, we can take that opportunity and we can actually grow from it. But what we don't want the danger of happening is to become complacent. And when such opportunities come, we become resentful and we carry on years of anger towards people, institutions like this, because we didn't get our way. Rather, the only opportunity is to say, I'm supposed to learn from this, let me take it. And it doesn't mean that maybe other people weren't wrong or right. That they, doesn't mean that they were right. They could have very well been wrong on every level. And what they did to us could have been horrible. But can I go and change that person's heart? The only person's heart I can change is mine. I could look within myself. And the only way that's going to do is doing what Kalia did, smritva, remembering. What is Krishna? He is Charachara Guru. He is the guru, he's the master of Chara and Achara, all moving and non-moving beings. He is Purusham Puranam, he's the oldest person. And he's Narayana, he's the shelter of all living entities. All these things taken together have implications. Chaitanya, Kavim. Can you give me a translation? Real loud. One should meditate. Oh.
One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he is the oldest, who is the control, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and is transcendental beyond this material nature.
I like that. The one thing, he's the maintainer of all living entities. That's one of the things that's mentioned there. So there's an invocation. He's the oldest, he's the original person, but because he is, he maintains everybody. Remember I was telling you how you make connections? So you find and when you're studying a shloka and you get a phrase, think if there's another shloka that has that phrase, and then see if there's logical implications. So this one there is. It's because he is the oldest person means he's maintaining everybody. And so Kalia is realizing he is maintaining me. He has my best interest at heart. He is doing this for my best interest. Kalia will walk away from this greatly benefited. He will be literally and figuratively smashed, but now he will have the Lord's lotus feet been placed on his head. This is special, special mercy coming from Krishna to him. And we could take it that same way when we feel ourselves being smashed. That's Krishna putting his feet on our head. And when we're getting upset, all that vomit, that's the ego coming out. So let it go out. Let it come out to the point where it's blood. And then realize we have no other shelter but this beautiful young boy. I think we'll stop there. Hare Krishna. Are there any comments or questions? Or occasional disagreements?
Hare Krishna. Yeah, just a appreciation of this very salient point you're bringing out, that through suffering greatness can come, and it's also what Prabhupada writes in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto with that famous verse, that Tenu Kampam Susamikshamano, and that purport. It's explained how one has to learn to tolerate, and usually it's suffering that we have to tolerate, not happiness, you know. So through that experience, something great can come. I was wondering if you can shed a little bit of light on how to help someone who is experiencing a moment of intense suffering, and to help them. It seems almost like at least for some time they can't but identify with the suffering. They may not be ready yet for, or is it how to do this? How to do, like just recently, one of my good friends, his wife left him after like 2 years of being together, and we've been spending time together over the phone. And I can see that for him, for some time, he just needs to stay in this zone of suffering before something more positive can be presented. You know, so why do we as living entities, why do we want to stay in the zone of suffering? Why is it so hard to move past the suffering point, to like put ourselves in this light of positivity, and let's move on, let's learn the lesson we have to learn and move on with life? I guess that's my real question. Why do we stay in that zone?
Yeah, well, you have two questions. I want to take the first one first about what to do. There was someone I was talking to at one point. I can't remember who. I remember it was a woman, and she was telling me about some problem. Was it a student? I can't remember, but I remember what she said. I don't need your advice right now. I just need you to listen. You know, we're generally very quick to give advice, even sometimes without diagnosing the problem, right? Person's in mid-sentence and we're like, you just need to chant Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You know, something just, here, let me say this. And it's not that our intention is bad. I mean, I'd like to think that when we're stepping in giving advice, it's because we have good intentions. We don't want to see the person suffering. We want to see them okay. We also want to glorify the holy name, or, you know, Krishna's devotees, whatever the case is, or Bhagavatam. However, sometimes with people, they're as you said, they're not in a position at that present moment to listen. So in times like that, it's us who need to listen. We need to stop and just listen to them. Let it all come out, honey. Just keep going. Give me more, right? Just let them go, because eventually they're going to wear out. No one's going to continue like that forever. And then after they've kind of said their piece, and it may take a few phone calls of them saying their piece. I mean, it may be 10. Do you have the patience for that? Do you have the endurance? Here's the trick: how not to put yourself in a situation where you're becoming poisoned. That's the real difficulty. Sometimes it may just say to the person, hey, let's just go for a walk. Or maybe turn the conversation and kind of turn it on its head, like they've been complaining. Like one time, this devotee came to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and he was just complaining about this other devotee, just complaining. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, do you have anything good you could say about him? You know, so it is, a delicate art how to handle someone who's very upset. I mean, I remember the other day a devotee called me, and I just completely on him. My good friend Jagadish Chaitanya Prabhu, who is like the epitome of like Titiksha, right? He's just tolerant and quiet and peaceful. You could probably break a bat over his back, and he would say, Prabhu, that kind of hurt. That's probably all you'd get from him. He may not even say that. He may just say, well, maybe we wanted to do, maybe you just needed to do that. He's a special soul. And I remember after complaining, I apologized. I said, no, I'm sorry. I don't mean to, because even I just had to get it out. And he's expert. He's a nurse. He's a psychiatric ward nurse at a hospital. No, I mean at a prison. Yeah, he's going back to Godhead. He's got like the tolerance of anything, He is Trinata Pisunichino. So sometimes I feel bad he had to be that person that day, but that helped me. And he had a few times he would try to step in and say something, and even I'd snap at him. And at the times like that, we have to also be forgiving. This person doesn't mean to snap. What they're really doing is just calling out for love. How can I give it to them? So the symptom of a more advanced devotee is that in their head, they're constantly trying to rack their brain how to help other people. And when we find ourselves in that position, we may not always make the best decision, but one thing we can do is we can look within our heart and say, do I care about this person? And think, what can I do that shows my care? Does it mean I just listen? Does it mean I redirect the conversation? Does it mean I completely change the topic? What can I do? So there's that end. Now, as far as your next question, which is why do we hold on? Because we're attached. Because we have big egos that think we're the enjoyer. And to the degree that we have that ego or that attachment to that particular thing, the degree we're going to throw a fit. And you'd be surprised, especially if you ever have kids like I did, the stuff they will throw a fit about. Dad, he's holding my broken stick. Tell him to give it back. Ah! There's 1,000 broken sticks. Pick up another one. You're throwing that much of a fit over this? But they will, because there's some attachment to that. And I was enjoying that, and you stopped my enjoyment, and how dare you? And so I guess when we're, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, we're beating the mind with a stick and shoe every morning, and part of that beating is when we're getting all upset about stuff. Why am I getting so upset? Why am I holding on for so long? Because I'm holding on for so long, holding on with the hope that things are going to change and I'm finally going to get my way. I'm not ready to let go of this one. We're getting it. Who's getting it? You're just suffering. Let it go. Move on. It's that simple. And we should think, well, if it's that simple, it should be that simple. But it's not. Sometimes it takes every hood being crushed. And then even then we don't get it. So at least we can tell ourselves, let me at least be like Kaliya. At least he was smart enough to surrender. Unlike some people who will never give in. Prabhupada tells the story of the man. I'll end your question with this story. The two men that get in an argument, the scissors versus knife. You know this story? Okay. I love this one. So these two men are arguing. What is better, scissors or knives? And they keep on fighting and arguing about this, and finally the one man says, the guy that was arguing that a knife is better than scissors, he goes, if you say scissors one more time, I'm going to throw you in that river. And the guy was like, scissors are better. And he tosses him in the river, and he's drowning, and he's dying. And even as he's dying, he puts up his hand and goes like this. To the very end, he's not going to give in. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, we should not be like this. Thank you. Anything else?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, bro, for a beautiful class.
Thank you.
In this narration, we hear that Kalia had to omit first blood, first poison and
Poison.
then blood. And then it's okay to understand that Krishna made him vomit poison, which was the real disease. But then why is life sustenance? And that's what people also kind of think, that Krishna just doesn't take away things that are bad, but even sometimes things that are needed for our sustenance, like the blood. Can you throw some light upon that? Why Krishna went to that extent?
There's a saying in English, desperate times call for desperate measures. Even he would have lost, let's say he would have lost his body. He would have lost that body. Still, his death would have been glorious. It would be better for him to die in such a way than to continue living as he had been. His life, Kaliya's life, had been causing suffering to other individuals without any care. If anyone would drink water from that area, they would die, right? So, when we're studying ethics, utilitarianism, would it be better for one Kaliya to die or 100 other people? So when you got it, when you judge it like that, and Krishna has to make a choice. He's the protector of all living entities. You have to get rid of someone like him. Now Krishna was being nice, and Krishna is sometimes nice to us. I'm going to just make you suffer a little bit to knock some sense in your head. And then we refuse, okay, now I'm going to really go for the jugular and really put it on you because you really need to get this. Yeah, Kaliya could have died. Krishna has killed, at this point, had killed so many demons. Putana, Baka, like this, one after another, he killed them. Kaliya, he was being extremely merciful to, because he could have killed him immediately, but he didn't. He prolonged his death sentence and let it continue, and then got to this point. Yeah, so the point of sustenance is, one, we're overly concerned with sustenance if we're thinking that we are our bodies. We are not our body. So sometimes we may even become upset with Krishna because it seemingly seems that he's doing something to us that is affecting our body and making our quality of life bad. But that is because we're attached to this temporary body at this present moment, and we're not seeing it for what it is. For example, some years ago, I was walking down the street when Vidura was just a baby. I was walking down the street, and a car hit me. This guy was a crackhead, and he stole his sister's car, went to buy some crack, had a seizure while driving, and hit me while I was walking. And so my back is a little sore sometimes, so if you see me not taking a minute to pay my obeisances, or even some days where I'm just standing, that's what's happening. I'm realizing, oh God, I better not bend down, because it may be hard to get up. Now, I could have a perfect back, but I could also take each one of those opportunities to remind me when that happened. I'll never forget that day when I got hit, because I was laying there, and I was thinking, maybe I'm going to die now from internal bleeding. I don't know what's wrong, or what's going to be wrong with my body. So maybe this is time to go. I said, let me just think about Prabhupada. I thought I could think about Krishna, but I said, but Prabhupada's more merciful. Let me just meditate on Srila Prabhupada. And I'll chant. I took my beads and I was chanting. And these guys came over and they're all panicking. Oh my God, you just got hit by a car. And I was like, just hand me my beads. They're right there. Hand me. And so I'm sitting there chanting. And now every day when this happened, and I remember at that time thinking death could come. Let me be conscious. So Krishna apparently has done something to my sustenance where my back is not as good as it used to be. But what I could do if I'm intelligent, but I'm not intelligent enough yet, but I should start meditating on this. Maybe you're the one who's reminding me. Every time my back hurts, I should be reminded, death is coming. Where is your consciousness? Does that help? Prabhuji?
Thank you so much for the class, Prabhu. There's so many things that you can run parallel to this. Your presentation went through that, which I appreciated very much in terms of taking lessons from this past tense of Krishna chastising Kaliya. One thing that comes to mind, one thing that you mentioned was that, that anger, that poison, let it, you let it go. Krishna's, smashing, Krishna's showing us something, and then, the poison comes. Now, sometimes either ourselves or we see others in the community of devotees being, purified by Krishna's mercy, and then this poison comes. And, Krishna, in one sense, went through with Kaliya quite systematically in terms of his, purification, and Kaliya kept trying, and poison keeps coming until he was fully purified. Now, from the perspective of a community of devotees, sometimes we see that. We see devotees that hold to that anger and then basically spewing poison. We see it in, just have to Google ISKCON and then you see so much poison that is out there.
Including literally a type of poison that people want to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how, as a community, we see Krishna's, hand on the purification of the devotees, of the community, of, the world, basically, like that. In one sense, one tends to, one almost that, get this, get rid of this person, or, like that, or Krishna kill the demon or something, eliminate him, something like that. But it may not be the case, so maybe you can comment.
Yeah. Without being overtly political, the technique that seems to be taken when somebody is upset is let's get rid of them. Let's ostracize them. This is a voice. If we get rid of their voice and silence them, then we don't have to hear this. Why can't they just stay positive? And sometimes the intent isn't even bad, right? It's let's get rid of this person because their presence disturbs others. Their presence is offensive. Let's get rid of them. The problem now is that when you do that, you're not really addressing the problem. You're kind of putting it off. And then it's kind of like if you had cockroaches or something. Well, let's drive them away. Well, they're just going to come back, and it's going to get even worse. There's a problem there, and it has to be addressed. The question becomes how to address it. So one, I will say that just simply pushing people away, even if they are overtly offensive, is not the best method. The best method is if there's a problem, how can I address this? How can I fix this? And it is a delicate thing, and I don't have the answer, like a blanket answer, because each person has an individual thing they're going through. What has made this person, for example, turn offensive? Was it because somebody in a high position was abusive of their power? Was it because they themselves did not take their spiritual life serious? There could be 1,000 factors. At least the thing I can think that we should do is that we can look at things from an individual perspective, and we should try to engage people in some type of service. Service is the only way people are going to be purified. If we drive people away and we do not give them service, I don't see how they're going to be purified. It may be take some creativity how to do that. For example, what if we have somebody that did something heinous, like molested a child or something? Well, obviously we can't have that person even in our proximity because they pose a danger. Can we go visit that person, though, and give them prasad? Can we do something to engage them, even in such a fallen condition? And I think that is at least the mindset we should have, is instead of pushing people away, think how we can try to reach out and help them. And it may be, we're only like, say, somebody, such and such, that's the only person that can help them. Well, then at least there's that person, right? He doesn't ever get offensive to him. Then send that person to go talk to him. Have him take him some prasad, something. Um, my fear is if we don't have this approach and we instead push, like I said, ostracize people, it's going to come back to haunt us because then the problem has not really been solved. It's only the can has just been kicked down the road. But again, it's a delicate balance, and it's not easy. And I would like it where we no longer heard people offending each other over book changes and complaining about going on tirades about Srila Prabhupada being poisoned and these type of things. When I hear these things, what I often hear is there is some type of pain there and it's now manifesting in this way. Because even if you're saying that that discussion is right, let's grant that this person's point is valid. How are you carrying on about it? The way you're acting, is it making people listen to you or is it making people just more agitated? And that's something we may even have to say to the person. Let's take, for example, I don't know, I'm not even going to humor it, but let's say whatever offensive position A is, let's say you're right. In all these years of you complaining, have you changed anybody else's opinion about it? In all these years of you complaining, have you made more friends or more enemies? You know? So, but it's delicate how to do this. The only thing I think we can do as individuals is continuously take serious shelter of the holy name and purify ourselves so that we become ambassadors of compassion, that when we do speak to people, we can somehow change their hearts. Because if we also are condescending and egotistic and we come at them like, I'm going to beat him, oh no, now it's on, I'm going to show him, I don't see how two egos clashing is really going to help. There has to be some love that's going to overpower ego. I know that was, does that help? Thank you. Anything else? Well, thank you very much. I never thought about I'd be able to give class in front of Kishore Kishori, so this was an honor. Thank you for having us. We had a wonderful time, and please pray that we can come back and visit you all again soon. Jai. Sri Vaishnav Thakur ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Pramandi.